I'm Congressman Jerry Nadler, and I'm going to read The Meaning of the King Holiday by Coretta Scott King. The Martin Luther King Jr. holiday celebrates the life and legacy of a man who brought hope and healing to America. We commemorate as well the timeless values he taught us through his example, the values of courage, truth, justice, compassion, dignity, humility, and service that so radiantly defined Dr. King's character and empowered his leadership. On this holiday, we commemorate the universal, unconditional love, forgiveness, and nonviolence that empowered his revolutionary spirit. We commemorate Dr. King's inspiring words because his voice and his vision filled a great void in our nation and answered our collective longing to become a country that truly lived by its noblest principles. Yet, Dr. King knew that it wasn't enough just to talk the talk, that he had to walk the walk for his words to be credible. And so we commemorate on this holiday the man of action, who put his life on the line for freedom and justice every day. The man who braved threats and jail and beatings, and who ultimately paid the highest price to make democracy a reality for all Americans. The King holiday honors the life and contributions of America's greatest champion of racial justice and equality, the leader who not only dreamed of a colorblind society, but who also led a movement that achieved historic reforms to help make it a reality. On this day, we commemorate Dr. King's great dream of a vibrant, multiracial nation, united in peace, justice, and reconciliation, and that has a place at the table for of every race and room at the inn for every needy child. We are called on this holiday not merely to honor, but to celebrate the values of equality, tolerance, and interracial sister and brotherhood he so compellingly expressed in his great dream for America. We call you to commemorate this holiday by making your personal commitment to serve humanity with a vibrant spirit of unconditional love that was his greatest strength and which empowered all of the great victories of his leadership. And with our hearts open to this spirit of unconditional love, we can indeed achieve the beloved community of Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. May we who follow Martin now pledge to serve humanity, promote his teachings, and carry forward his legacy into the 21st century.
Welcome, humanitarians. I'm Michael Klein. I'm reading a poem by Muriel Rukeyser called Poem. I lived in the first century of world wars. Most mornings I would be more and less insane. The newspapers would arrive with their careless stories. The news would pour out of various devices, interrupted by attempts to sell products to the unseen. I would call my friends on other devices. They would be more or less mad for similar reasons. Slowly, I would get to pen and paper, make my poems for others unseen and unborn. In the day, I would be reminded of those men and women brave, setting up signals across vast distances, considering a nameless way of living of almost unimagined values. As the lights darkened, as the lights of night brightened, we would try to imagine them, try to find each other, to construct peace, to make love, to reconcile waking with sleeping, ourselves with each other, ourselves with ourselves. We would try by any means to reach the limits of ourselves, to reach beyond ourselves, to let go the means, to wake. I lived in the first century of these wars. Thank you.
Hi. 4 out of the 24 people who are objecting and refusing to go to the inauguration are from New York. My name is Therese Swoboda, and I'm reading a poem called Debris by Lola Ridge, the subject of my biography, Anything That Burns You, who's a poet whose work disappeared because it was radical, feminist, and experimental. Debris was written 100 years ago. A terrible depression had hit New York City at the same time as a huge influx of European immigrants, ancestors of many of us today. A time when starving, unemployed immigrants slept on park benches with their straw boaters over their faces. Debris. I love those spirits that men stand off and point at, or shudder and hood up their souls. Those ruined ones where liberty has lodged an hour and passed like flame, bursting asunder the too small house.
What a delight to be here and an honor. My name is Mina Alexander, and I'm going to read a poem I wrote that's set right at the crossroads a few blocks from here. Winter Light. It's afternoon, dark already at the crossroads. A sudden storm of bikers, men in leather motors snarling. Flags spurt skyward. I freeze in place at the metal barricade, the seam of sense unpicked, brown body splayed. In the aftermath of light, what proof is there of love? Buoyancy of the soul hard to mark apart from the body. Its tenuous equilibrium, wave after wave of arrival, and questions in revolving air as if life depended on such flammable notations. You come, your white sari with a blue border blowing, just as I saw you first, head bare, a sudden turn on asphalt, you hold your arms out, as if in a palash grove, and call to me, come over here. Sometimes the bleeding petals bring down a house, bring down a republic. This is what happens when children are bought and sold for money. Ghee to burn her with, 3 taka, 10 rupees, 8 taka, 1 rupee. That is the cloth to cover her with. Camphor for the burning, pang to make her drowsy, turmeric chandan. You stand so still on a road where motorbikes throbbed, your hair open to the savage wind. Later, I tried to follow tracks of feet, touch cold cotton that lashed your flesh in place. Brood, and it will come. A seizure of sense, a reckoning. Write with chalk, sticks of lead, anything to hand. Use a bone, a safety pin, a nail, write on paper or stone. Let the poem smolder in memory. In the desolation of time, write how one stood utterly straight, inked in the bubble with a woman's name way at the top of the paper ballot, felt her own hand tremble. This was in a schoolhouse with empty metal desks. One set her nipple to an infant's lips, felt her heart sprout wings, flit over the barbed wire fence of the immigration detention center. One whimpered in her sleep, "Mother, I think I am a tree. I trail my roots behind me. The man with bad hair will axe me down." Another daubed her face with white paint, set herself up in a cage outside the museum, hung a sign round her own neck. We are the barbarians come to live amongst you. Some of us speak this language. Then hoarse already whispered, come closer to me. You who were born in the Gangetic Plains a year after mid-century, consider the fragility of the horizon, the arc of stars into which your father raised you. When you fall, as surely you will one day, try to swim forward into blackness, arms pointing to where you imagine the vault of heaven to be, as Draupadi did, a great-throated cry she made in the forest of palace trees. Only the birds could save her, they picked up her cries. Remember Antigone, who anointed her brother's corpse with dirt to keep away the wild dogs. She too made bird sounds, guttural cries. Go to Standing Rock, where people mass outside their tents in splintering cold to guard the quiet springs of water. There the balash blooms, tree used for timber, resin dye, tinting the nails of the love god. On its leaves names swarm: Anna May Aquash, Eric Garner, Freddie Gray, Julia de Burgos, countless more. Thrust from earth's core in the shadow of musk deer, the green throat of the hummingbird, in the honeycomb of light, they step forward to be counted. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Peter Zilahi. I grew up behind the Iron Curtain in a city decorated with bullet holes, which was weird because we didn't have guns. We didn't have a gun problem, we had a revolution problem. We didn't win. There were no bullet holes in the there were no bullets in the holes. It looked like a magic trick, like they somehow came from inside. Later on I learned that they were ornaments of resistance. They were a matter of pride and shame. Your history may be different, but dictatorship starts with self-censorship. Resistance has to come from inside. It has to be a reflex. A reflex to say no to things you cannot do and you won't do no matter what. Your history may be different, but our shame will be the same. The City of Holes. In 1956, on the 500th anniversary of the triumphant Battle of Belgrade, Budapest is shot to pieces. Using new venues, the Soviet army is reviving the traditions of '44. The city is riddled with holes. Holes in house walls, holes between houses, the new holes getting mixed up with the old. Whether a house looks the way it does because of the siege or the revolution, because of '44 or '56, becomes a constant topic of conversation. It can be '44, it's a new building. No, it isn't, it's a typical Bauhaus. Can't you see the curved terrace? Then the snow fell and covered up the holes. Then more snow fell, and the new snow got mixed in with the old, and nobody could tell anymore which snow was covering up all those holes. And people waited for the snow to melt, because eternal snow was occupying the country. 40,000 big and several million smaller holes. Budapest is the city of holes. I was born in the city of holes. There were bullet holes in the hospital wall and bullet holes in the tombstones. A 6-foot grass snake slithered into the grave of Baron Mano Schwamberg-Kruchina and his wife Marianne before my very eyes. The Baron died in '56, his wife in '44. Was it the class struggle or a drunken stonemason? Then the tombstone disappeared, leaving a hole in its place. Then, instead of the hole, a new grave. You could follow the cycle of the holes. The house in which we lived was built on the top of the hole left by my grandfather's house, and as a child, my father used to play in the bomb craters in the garden. In one of the holes we found the wing bomb, and even that had a hole in it. Someone had screwed off the head. We climbed walls, stuck our fingers in the holes, and with eyes closed tried to imagine the bullets. The contemporary history of Budapest, written in Braille. Budapest cannot be seen with the eyes, only with the fingers. It can be seen only through its holes. Read between the lines, wall-size hieroglyphs, epic and lyric variations, wartime graffiti, crude erotic messages, an archive turned inside out. Thank you.
You can't hear me? What about now? You know what I like? A huge crowd of good-looking people who want to hear me. I'm Jill McDonough, and I love you. I'm going to read a short poem by Seamus Heaney for all of you people who can hear me. Okay, good. You can hear me. From the Republic of Conscience. At immigration, the clerk was an old man who produced a wallet from his homespun coat and showed me a photograph of my grandfather. The woman in customs asked me to declare the words of our traditional cures and charms to heal dumbness and avert the evil eye. No porters, no interpreter, no taxi. You carried your own burden, and very soon your symptoms of creeping privilege disappeared. Fog is a dreaded omen there, but lightning spells universal good, and parents hang swaddled infants in trees during thunderstorms. Salt is their precious mineral, and seashells are held to the ear during births and funerals. The base of all inks and pigments is seawater. Their sacred symbol is a stylized boat. The sail is an ear, the mast a sloping pen, the hull a mouth shape, the keel an open eye. At their inauguration, public leaders must swear to uphold unwritten law and weep to atone for their presumption to hold office, and to affirm their faith that all life sprang from salt in tears which the sky god wept after he dreamt his solitude was endless. I came back from that frugal republic with my two arms the one length, the customs woman having insisted my allowance was myself. The old man rose and gazed into my face and said that was official recognition, that I was now a dual citizen. He therefore desired me when I got home to consider myself a representative and to speak on their behalf in my own tongue. Their embassies, he said, were everywhere, but operated independently, and no ambassador would ever be relieved. Thank you.
How's everybody doing? What's up? My name is Emmanuel Xavier. This poem was first published 15 years ago. I wrote it before 9/11 during the Bush administration and dedicated here today to the incoming Trump administration. It's called Americano. I look at myself in the mirror trying to figure out what makes me an American. I see Ecuador and Puerto Rico. I see brujo spirits moving across the backs of santeros, splattered with the red blood of sacrificed chickens on their virgin white clothes and blue beads for Yemaya, practicing religions without a roof. I see my own blood reddening the white sheets of a stranger, proud American blue jean labels on the side of the bed, I see Don Rosario and his guayabera sitting outside the bodega with his Puerto Rican flag, reading time in the eyes of alley cats. I see my mother trying to be more like Marilyn Monroe than Julia de Burgos. I see myself trying to be more like James Dean than Federico Garcia Lorca. I see Carlos Santana, Gloria Estefan, Ricky Martin, and Jennifer Lopez more than just sporadic Latin explosions, more like fireworks on El 4 de Julio, as American as Bruce Springsteen, Janis Joplin, Elvis Presley, and Aretha Franklin. I see Taco Bells and chicken fajitas at McDonald's. I see red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. I see Cheetah Rivera and Lin-Manuel Miranda on Broadway. You see, I am as American as lemon merengue pie. As American as Wonder Woman's panties, as American as Madonna's bra, as American as the Quinteñeros, the Abduls, the Lees, the Jacksons, the Kennedys, all of us immigrants to the soil, since none sound American Indian to me. As American as televisions know it that the anthem is played, and I am not ashamed. Jose, can you see? I pledge allegiance to this country, 'tis of me, land of dreams and opportunity, land of proud detergent names and commercialism, land of corporations. If I can win gold medals at the Olympics, if I can sign my life away to die for the United States, ain't no small town hick or president-elect gonna tell me I ain't an American, because I can speak in 2 languages. Coño carajo, y fuck you! This is my country too, where those who not believe in freedom and diversity are the ones who need to get the hell out. Thank you.
This is pretty cool. I am Charlotte Druckmann. This is Allison Glock. This is Melanie Dunay. We are going to be reading from this book, Anna Devere Smith's Letters to a Young Artist, which she wrote in 2006, so that was 11 years ago. We're going to be reading the letter titled The Man.
Dear BZ, the man. We have to reckon with the man regardless of what shape he comes in. I thought about this today while having lunch with my friend Paul Costello. Paul, who worked for the First Lady Rosalind Carter when Jimmy Carter was President of the United States, has spent a lot of his life in Washington. His wife is a political reporter. He understands a lot about power from watching how it works up close. He reads several newspapers daily, observing the effects of what people say and what they do. We were sitting by the sea at the Hotel Hakulani in Honolulu, which was built in the 19th century. We talked at length about his career and mine. It's important to have friends whose careers differ from yours and to learn how you can from their struggles and vice versa. I talked about how in my career, there were black men who were more or less gatekeepers of my fate, or so I thought. You may look at me and see me as a woman who has certain accomplishments from paving my own way. The fact is, we all work in large, complicated communities. In my case, some of the men who grew up in my generation, black men, seem to play the role of the go-between between white people in power and artists like myself who are not part of traditional institutional structures. There are 2 black men in particular who have a lot of power in each of the realms in which I move. For this reason, I sometimes have the feeling that without their go-ahead to whites making decisions, I just can't move. In all honesty, I don't know if my feeling is a reality. I was feeling that way while I was visiting with Paul. He put down his glass of iced tea, wiped his mouth with his cloth napkin, and said very simply, "They are the man." "The what?" I asked. "The man. They may be your friends, but they are also the man. They work for the man." He paused for another minute and said succinctly, "You're not the man. You wouldn't be good at it." He paused again and said passionately, raising his voice to make the point, "You wouldn't want to be the man." Paul took another sip of his iced tea and looked at me out of the corner of his eye to see how I reacted. I stared out at the boats and the gorgeous sea and the exquisite setting, and I thought to myself, well, he's right. My job in my work is not to acquire power, it is to question power. What I say I believe is that my job is to see the world upside down, to doubt, to question, to ask. I hope I believe what I say I believe.
Let me tell you something, BZ. A lot of times you take a trip halfway around the world. You think the trip is for one thing, and you come away with something else. You change in a way you did not expect. These are the lessons that come well after school, college, training, and apprenticeships. These lessons are not full courses. They are 2 sentences long. I felt I'd gotten a mini degree in 2 minutes. The man. We have to reckon with the man. I first heard the expression in the 60s while watching Lorraine Hansberry's play A Raisin in the Sun in its movie version starring Sidney Poitier, sitting with my entire family as it played out on black and white TV. Mama. Where you been, son? Walter, breathing hard, made a call. Mama. To whom, son? Walter. To the man. He heads for his room. Mama. What man, baby? Walter. Stops in the door. The man, Mama. Don't you know who the man is? Ruth. Walter Lee? Walter. The man. Like the guys in the street say. The man, Captain Boss, Mr. Charlie, old Captain please, Mr. Boss Man. In the Black Power movement, the man was an expression that connoted the white man. It started as the white man this, the white man that, meaning a man in power. It got shortened to the man. Now anybody could be the man. You will always have to deal with the man, unless you are the man. But even the President of the United States, currently the leader of the free world, the leader of the only superpower in the world, can have his hands tied by other forces. In the terrorist world, for example, there is the man. We don't even know who it is. It is crucial for you to know who the man is in any situation in which you find yourself, and to know what your relationship to the man is, and how you would get to the man if you needed to. Often there is a route you have to take to get to the man. It's not always obvious. So on the first day of any situation, learn who the man is and what the route to the man is. Sometimes the most unassuming person is closest to the man, and you never know what kinds of relationships the man has or who has his or her ear.
The man is whoever has the money or whoever has the power to work out the money needed and the venue needed to expose your art. This person or group of persons owns the studio or runs the theater or runs the concert hall. This person decides who gets the grants, edits or owns the newspapers that write about your work, owns the magazines or edits the photographs that go into the magazine that you might be in someday, with an article about you and your art, or you wearing the latest spring fashions with other people of note, or you at a party with other people of note. Sometimes the man writes the reviews. The man can be a man or a woman. The man can be older than you or younger than you. The man can be any color, orange even. More often, they are white, but there are black men. Who are the men? There are Asian men, some black women, some Latinos. The man is anyone who is in power anywhere in the world. George Bush is the man. Osama bin Laden is the man. Condoleezza Rice is the man. Missy Elliott is the man. Bruce Springsteen is the man. The head of the Museum of Modern Art is the man. Sean Puffy Combs is the man. The man is one who can open the door, and the man can shut you down. The man has the power, but so do you. And my goal in writing to you is to make that clear. Put this on your wall, wherever you put things that mean something to you. The man has the power, but so do I. And one day, you might just be the man.
Hello, New York! Is everybody here ready to resist? So we are gonna do a few cheers to liven everybody up so nobody freezes and to show the power of our voice. So when I say writers, you say resist. Writers! Resist! Writers! Resist! Writers! Resist! Writers! Resist! Writers! Resist! When I say louder, you say together. Louder! Together! Louder! Together! Louder! Together! Now let's do both. Writers! Resist! Louder! Together! 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 Okay, are you guys feeling it? Are we gonna be empowered and ready to keep fighting for as long as we have to? Now, can you give a huge New York City welcome to Amy Goodman?
I come from Democracy Now! Our motto is go to where the silence is. And that should be the motto of all of the media. We're recently back from the standoff at Standing Rock. And so I bring you Abecedarian requiring further examination of Anglican seraphim subjugation of a wild Indian reservation by Natalie Diaz. Angels don't come to the reservation. Bats maybe, or owls, boxy modeled things, coyotes too. They all mean the same thing, death. And death eats angels. I guess because I haven't seen an angel fly through this valley ever. Gabriel? Never heard of him. Know a guy named Gabe though. He came through here one powwow and stayed, typical Indian. Sure, he had wings, jailbird that he was. He flies around in stolen cars. Wherever he stops, kids grow like gourds from women's bellies. Like I said, no Indian I've ever heard of has ever been or seen an angel. Maybe in a Christmas pageant or something. Nazarene Church holds one every December, organized by Pastor John's wife. It's no wonder. Pastor John's son is the angel. Everyone knows angels are white. Quit bothering with angels, I say. They're no good for Indians. Remember what happened last time? Some white god came floating across the ocean. Truth is, there may be angels, but if there are angels up there, living on clouds or sitting on thrones across the sea, wearing velvet robes and golden rings, drinking whiskey from silver cups, we're better off if they... We're better off if they stay rich and fat and ugly and exactly where they are, in their own distant heavens. You better hope you never see angels on the res. If you do, they'll be marching you off to Zion or Oklahoma or some other hell they've mapped out for us.
Hello, I'm A.M. Holmes, and I'm going to be reading The Gift Outright by Robert Frost. This was the first inauguration poem read by Robert Frost at John F. Kennedy's inauguration. The Gift Outright. The land was ours before we were the land's. She was our land for more than 100 years. Before we were her people, she was ours in Massachusetts and Virginia, but we were England's, still colonials, possessing what we were still unpossessed by, possessed by what we now no more possessed. Something we were withholding made us weak until we found out that it was ourselves. We were withholding from our land of living and forthwith found salvation in surrender. Such as we were, we gave ourselves outright. The deed of gift was many deeds of war. To the land vaguely realizing westward, but still unstoried, artless, unenhanced. Such as she was, such as she would become.
Hi, you guys. How are you cold? I'm cold too. All right, I'm Rick Moody. This poem is by Miller Williams, and it was written for the second inaugural of our first husband, Bill Clinton. It's called Of History and Hope. We have memorized America, how it was born and who we have been and where. In ceremonies and silence, we say the words, telling the stories, singing the old songs. We like the places they take us. Mostly we do. The great and all the anonymous dead are there. We know the sound of all the sounds we brought. The rich taste of it is on our tongues. But where are we going to be? And why and who? The disenfranchised dead want to know. We mean to be the people we meant to be, to keep on going where we meant to go. But how do we fashion the future? Who can say how, except in the minds of those who will call it now? The children, the children. And how does our garden grow? With waving hands, oh, rarely in a row, and flowering faces. And brambles that we can no longer allow. Who were many people coming together cannot become one people falling apart. Who dreamed for every child an even chance cannot let luck alone turn doorknobs or not. Whose law was never so much of the hand as the head, cannot let chaos make its way to the heart. Who have seen learning struggle from teacher to child, cannot let ignorance spread itself like rot. We know what we have done and what we have said, and how we have grown degree by slow degree, believing ourselves toward all we have tried to become, just and compassionate, equal, able, and free. All this in the hands of children, eyes already set on a land we can never visit. It isn't there yet. But looking through their eyes, we can see what our long gift to them may come to be if we can truly remember, they will not forget. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Flournoy. I'm very happy to be here on Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Today I will be reading a portion of On the Pulse of Morning by Maya Angelou, delivered in 1993 for Bill Clinton's first inauguration. A rock, a river, a tree, hosts a species long since departed, marked the mastodon. The dinosaur who left dry tokens of their sojourn here on our planet floor. Any broad alarm of their hastening doom is lost in the gloom of dust and ages. But today, the rock cries out to us clearly, forcefully. Come, you may stand upon my back and face your destiny, but seek no haven in my shadow. I will give you no more hiding place down here. You, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long, face down in ignorance, your mouths spilling words, armed for slaughter. The rock cries out today, you may stand on me, but do not hide your face. Across the wall of the world, a river sings a beautiful song. Come rest here by my side, each of you, a bordered country, delicate and strangely made proud, yet thrusting perpetually under siege. Your armed struggles for profit have left collars of waste upon my shore, currents of debris upon my breast. Yet today I call you to my riverside. If you will study war no more, come. Clad in peace, and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me when I and the tree and the stone were one. Before cynicism was a bloody sear across your brow, and when you yet knew, you still knew nothing. The river sings and sings on. There's a true yearning to respond, the singing river and the wise rock. So say the Asian, the Hispanic, the Jew, the African and Native American, the Sioux, the Catholic, the Muslim, the French, the Greek, the Irish, the rabbi, the priest, the sheikh, the gay, the straight, the preacher, the privileged, the homeless, the teacher. They all hear the speaking of the tree. Today, the first and last of every tree speaks to humankind. Come to me, here beside the river. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alexander Chi. I'm honored to read Praise Song for the Day, a poem for Barack Obama's presidential inauguration by Elizabeth Alexander. Each day we go about our business, walking past each other, catching each other's eyes or not, about to speak or speaking. All about us is noise. All about us is noise and bramble, thorn and din, each one of our ancestors on our tongues. Someone is stitching up a hem, darning a hole in a uniform, patching a tire, repairing the things in need of repair. Someone is trying to make music somewhere with a pair of wooden spoons on an oiled drum, with cello, boombox, harmonica, voice. A woman and her son wait for the bus. A farmer considers the changing sky. A teacher says, take out your pencils, begin. We encounter each other in words spiny or smooth, whispered or declaimed, words to consider, reconsider. We cross dirt roads and highways that mark the will of someone, and then others who said, I need to see what's on the other side. I know there's something better down the road. We need to find a place where we are safe. We walk into that which we cannot yet see. Say it plain, that many have died for this day. Sing the names of the dead who brought us here, who laid the train tracks, raised the bridges, picked the cotton and the lettuce, built brick by brick the glittering edifices they would then clean. and work inside of. Praise song for struggle, praise song for the day, praise song for every hand-lettered sign, the figuring it out at kitchen tables. Some live by love thy neighbor as thyself, others by first do no harm or take no more than you need. What if the mightiest word is love? Love beyond marital, filial, national love that casts a widening pool of light. Love with no need to preempt grievance. In today's sharp sparkle, this winter air, anything can be made, any sentence begun. On the brink, on the brim, on the cusp, praise song for walking forward in that light. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jaime Manrique, and I'm going to read a brief prose piece that I wrote this afternoon for this occasion. Growing up in Colombia in the 1950s and 60s, I became familiar with the political figure of the caudillo. So in the past couple of years, after 50 years of living in this country, of which I am a proud citizen, it was a shock to see a Latin American-style caudillo emerge and capture the imagination of a large segment of the American population. Caudillos proclaim to have the capacity to solve the grave problems of a nation and the problems of the people who often feel neglected by their governments. Caudillos are often also elected in rigged elections, and when they don't win the popular vote, they stage a coup. Caudillos are charismatic figures who become hugely popular by making false promises to the people. With the help of the oligarchy, the billionaires, and the financial institutions, and often the army, caudillos become dictators who rule as absolute monarchs of the past. One of their tactics is to cynically devalue the meaning of words by using propaganda surrogates whose main function is to misinform the people and twist language to the point it becomes difficult to differentiate the truth from a lie. In the caudillos' twisted view of the world, the people end up becoming the enemy, criminals, and those who oppose them are jailed, exiled, and often disappeared. The great philosopher Hannah Arendt created controversy at the end of her life when she said about the Jews in Nazi Germany that perhaps they should have fought back. The point she was making, I believe, did not apply only to the unspeakable atrocities of the Holocaust, but to all the people in all nations who failed to rise up against their tyrants. I am afraid that we're no longer waiting for the barbarians. The barbarians are here and they mean to stay for another 40 years. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sofia Quintero, and it's my privilege to read to you an excerpt from the Arthur Miller Freedom to Write lecture delivered by another Boricua from the Bronx, Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Have I had any personal experiences with censorship or self-censorship? And then more broadly, how does the notion of freedom change depending on circumstances? Has my understanding of freedom changed since my appointment to the Supreme Court? I must preface my remarks today by saying that my own experiences of censorship since my appointment to the court is not a hardship, and it would be fastidious for me to compare it to the repression experienced by the writers that Penn supports or that some judges have endured. Judges have been threatened with public censorship or removal, economically persecuted to ensure their decisions conform to the will or public opinion, and even jailed. In some jurisdictions, judges are banished to a virtual Siberia to neutralize their voices. In many countries, judges are killed. We are fortunate that Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution guarantees federal judges their positions for life, absent impeachment for high crime or misdemeanor. and that no diminution of our salaries can occur during our tenure. These guarantees largely guard against much of the overt censorship that judges experience. Despite its rarity, the threat alone of impeachment or removal in response to a judge's decision causes untold anxiety and is often viewed as an assault on judicial independence. It is why so many lawyers and citizens in our country work assiduously to guard judicial independence against overt or even covert threats of censorship or impeachment for an unpopular decision. It's true, you can easily find instructions on the internet for how to impeach a judge, but accomplishing it is thankfully a very difficult matter. I do not claim any special bravery in my work on the court, but knowing that freedom is both fragile and precious, and its name too easily appropriated by those who were branded exclusively with their own politics or treat it as a commodity for export or impose it by military force. We do well to study it closely, to learn how its facets show under different lights, how at one moment freedom may be indistinguishable from responsibility, and at another recognizes that it shares features of privacy. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Issa Davis, and this is a song for many movements by our sister Audre Lorde. Nobody wanted to die on the way, caught between ghosts of whiteness and the real water. None of us wanted to leave our bones on the way to salvation. 3 planets to the left, a century of light years ago. Our spices are separate and particular, but our skins sing in complementary keys. At 7:45, meantime, we were telling the same stories over and over and over. But broken down gods survive in the crevasses and mud pots of every beleaguered city, where it is obvious there are too many bodies to cart to the ovens or gallows. And our uses have become more important than our silence. After the fall, too many empty cases of blood to bury or burn, and there will be no body left to listen. Our labor has become more important than our silence. Our labor has become more important than our silence. Thanks.
Hi there, my name is Jess Rao. I'm going to read a poem by my friend Katie Rosemurgy. This is called America Talks to Me Like a Mother. Don't worry. One kills in dreams, but wakes not having killed. Having not killed is part of waking. Some mornings, though, you lay there, pinned under layers of light, fear, and woolen blankets. You know what's wrong, what's right, and what's wrong. What you don't know is what happened, and if you were actually there. That's why dreams of digging a deep hole with a stolen shovel are so confusing. That's why you expect to jerk awake when you stand in a pile of dry brush holding a lit match in your hand. The best thing to do always is get up and walk down the stairs. Don't leave. Not yet. Wait a while in the kitchen. It doesn't matter whose kitchen, and let the house absorb the blame. That's what a house is for. You aren't screaming, you are insisting because you're always wrong, even while you sit on the ground before daybreak waiting for enough light to gather sticks. You don't know yet what a stick is. You can't be expected to remember anything once you've seen the sunrise. All day long, you walk back and forth through the field, standing guard over what didn't happen, to keep it from mixing with what did. You didn't shoot the gun, you just listened well when people talked about how to do it. You didn't walk unscathed through the fire, you walked unscathed over it. You happened to find a narrow bridge. You wouldn't purposely hurt anyone, but keep describing all the ways that you would. List all the things that never happened and see if you can suck clean the edges of what did. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Hey, my name is Hirsch Sawney, and I'm going to be reading This is Water by the late David Foster Wallace. It has kind of Gandhian whiff to it, and I think people like Gandhi and Dr. King need to be in the center of our minds right now. I can spend time in the end of the day traffic jam being angry and disgusted at all the huge, stupid, lane-blocking SUVs and Hummers and V12 pickup trucks burning their wasteful, selfish 40-gallon tanks of gas, and I could dwell on the fact that the patriotic or religious bumper stickers always seem to be on the biggest, most disgustingly selfish vehicles driven by the ugliest, most inconsiderate and aggressive drivers who are usually talking on cell phones as they cut people off in order to get just 20 stupid feet ahead in a traffic jam. And I could think about how our children's children will despise us for wasting all the future's fuel and probably screwing up the climate, and how spoiled and stupid and disgusting we all are, and how it all just sucks, and so on and so forth. Look, if I choose to think this way, fine, lots of us do, except that thinking this way tends to be so easy and automatic, it doesn't have to be a choice. Thinking this way is my natural default setting. It's the automatic, unconscious way that I experience the boring, frustrating, crowded parts of adult life when I'm operating on the automatic, unconscious belief that I am the center of the world and that my immediate needs and feelings are what should determine the world's priorities. The thing is that there are obviously different ways to think about these kinds of situations. In this traffic, all these vehicles stuck and idling in my way, it's not impossible that some of these people in SUVs have been in horrible auto accidents in the past and now find driving so traumatic that their therapist has all but ordered them to get a huge heavy SUV so they can feel safe enough to drive, or that the Hummer that just cut me off is maybe being driven by a father whose little child is hurt or sick in the seat next to him, and he's trying to rush to the hospital, and he's in a way bigger, more legitimate hurry than I am. It is actually I who am in his way. Please don't think that I'm giving you moral advice, or that I'm saying you're supposed to think this way, or that anyone expects you to just automatically do it. Because it's hard, it takes will and mental effort, and if you're like me, some days you won't be able to do it, or you just flat out won't want to. But most days, if you're aware enough to give yourself a choice, you could choose to look differently at this fat, dead-eyed, overmade lady who just screamed at her child in the checkout line. Maybe she's not usually like this. Maybe she's been up 3 straight nights holding the hand of her husband who's dying of bone cancer. Or maybe this lady is the low-wage clerk at the DMV who just yesterday helped your spouse resolve a nightmarish red tape problem through some small act of bureaucratic kindness. Of course, none of this is likely, but it's also not impossible. It just depends on what you want to consider. If you're automatically sure that you know what reality is and what is really important, if you want to operate on your default setting, then you, like me, will not consider possibilities that aren't pointless and annoying. But if you've really learned how to think, how to pay attention, then you will know you have other options. It will actually be within your power to experience a crowded, loud, slow, consumer hell type situation as not only meaningful but sacred, on fire with the same force that lit the stars. Compassion, love, the subsurface unity of all things. Thank you, folks.
Good afternoon. Indra Namitanagan, an agenda for the new year. Let us make peace this new year in our homes, our streets, in our letters, our tweets, our support for refugees and administration of just laws, and rewriting of unjust decrees and rules in our 50 states and our one globe. Let freedom take up the reins everywhere, and let us not build weapons of mass of our own destruction. Let us bury hatchets and disputes. Be kind to our neighbors. Let us not build any more walls. Let us use wind, water and sun to energize us. Let us go to the streets and into media streams to speak freely and protect the back of our democracy. Let us get our queer and our straight hearts to pump and pump, our black and white minds to strip off the fungus of difference from our daily bread, and let us eat together and crush grapes together and work everywhere to remind the houses of power that the people give and the people take away, and we, the people, are writing this poem. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Craig Morgan Teicher, and I'm going to read a very short bit from a George Orwell essay called You and the Atomic Bomb. And I'm no advocate of violent weaponry, but I think he's also talking here about other ways that we can resist. So Orwell says, "The great age of democracy and of national self-determination was the age of the musket and the rifle. After the invention of the flintlock and before the invention of the percussion cap, the musket was a fairly efficient weapon, and at the same time so simple it could be produced almost anywhere. But thereafter, every development in military technique has favored the state against the individual, and the industrialized country against the backward one. There are fewer and fewer foci of power. Already in 1939, there were only 5 states capable of waging war on the grand scale, and now there are only 3, ultimately perhaps only 2. This trend has been obvious for years and was pointed out by a few observers even before 1914. The one thing that might reverse it is the discovery of a weapon, or, to put it more broadly, of a means of fighting, not dependent on huge concentrations of industrial plants." Thanks.
Hi there, I'm Deborah Solomon, and I've been instructed to read more George Orwell from his famous essay, You and the Atomic Bomb. I would like to add it was written in 1945, 72 years ago, when the world was facing nuclear annihilation. Why are we still facing nuclear annihilation? And why is that fear so alive now? I'm proud to stand here with PEN and Writers Resist and my fellow writers who are prepared to devote their every last syllable to the preservation of language and truth and the preservation of this planet. Here's Orwell, one paragraph only. From various symptoms, one can infer that the Russians do not yet possess the secret of making the atomic bomb. On the other hand, the consensus of opinion seems to be that they will possess it within a few years. So we have before us the prospect of 2 or 3 monstrous superstates, each possessed of a weapon by which millions of people can be wiped out in a few seconds, dividing the world between them. It has been rather hastily assumed that this means bigger and bloodier wars, and perhaps an actual end to the machine civilization. But suppose, and really this is the likeliest development, suppose that the surviving great nations make a tacit agreement never to use the atomic bomb against one another. Suppose they only use it, or the threat of it, against people who are unable to retaliate,
In that case, we are back where we were before, the only difference being that power is concentrated in still fewer hands, and that the outlook for subject peoples and oppressed classes is still more hopeless. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Wells, and Kevin Prufin and I are reading Allen Ginsberg's poem, War Prophet Litany. These are the names of the companies that have made money from the war. 1968 Anno Domini, 4080 Hebraic. These are the corporations who profited by merchandising skin-burning phosphorus or shells fragmented to thousands of flesh-piercing needles, and here listed millions gained by each combine for manufacture, and here are gains numbered, indexed a decade, set in order, here named the fathers in office in these industries, telephones directing finance, names of directors, makers of fates, and the names of the stockholders of these destined aggregates. And here are the names of their ambassadors to the Capitol, representatives to legislature, those who sit drinking in hotel lobbies to persuade, and separate listed those who drop amphetamine with military, gossip, argue, persuade, suggesting policy, naming language, proposing strategy, this done for fee, as ambassadors to Pentagon, consultants to military, paid by their industry.
And these are the names of the generals and captains military who know thus work for war goods manufacturers, and above these listed the names of the banks, combines, investment trusts that control these industries, and these are the names of the newspapers owned by these banks, and these are the names of the air stations owned by these combines, and these are the numbers of thousands of citizens employed by these businesses named, and the beginning of this accounting is 1958, and the end is 1968, that static be contained in orderly mind, coherent and definite, and the first form of this litany begun first day December 1967 furthers this poem of these states.
As we're getting set up here, I just want to take a quick moment and introduce you to Abigail Shapiro, who sang the national anthem for you guys earlier. The song you're about to hear is part of an anti-bullying campaign called Broadway Kids Against Bullying. You can watch the video and download the single on iTunes. And the song is called I Have a Voice. Ma'am.
Tell me, are we good with the track? Everything should be good to rock and roll now. Are we good? Yes, sir. Okay.
She's gonna flip.
I have a voice, simple and clear. It speaks the truth for all to hear.
It gives me hope, it gives me faith, it lifts me up, it keeps me safe.
I have a voice, it's mine alone. It comforts me, it is my own.
Although
I'm strong in its embrace.
No one can say what I have seen or understand where I have been. For what I found inside myself belongs to me and no one else. If I were blind and had no eyes to see, still I would hear that voice inside of me. I wish that you could hear it too. I have a soul that's simple and clear, speaks the truth for all to hear, gives me hope, gives me faith, I have a hope that I am saved. No one can say what I have seen or understand where I have been. For what I found inside myself belongs to me and no one else. If I were blind and had no eyes to see, still I would hear that voice that lives in me. I wish that you could hear it too. I have a voice, it's mine alone. It comforts me, it is my own. I know it's small, but it is strong. I have a voice, it is my song.
Awesome.
Sound great.
They're wonderful.
Those are Broadway kids. Broadway kids, you are amazing. You are our hope for the next generation. And now I have to follow the children and the music. I'm Andrew Solomon. I'm the president of PEN America. And I am a writer, and I will resist. There are many reasons to be appalled by the new presidency. We can be appalled by the lack of dignity, the lack of generosity, the lack of competence, by the appalling cabinet appointments, by the lack of concern over conflicts of interest, by the inhumane attitude toward the poor, and by climate denial. The general demeanor of bullying authoritarianism. But we're here today to fight in particular for First Amendment rights, for the freedom to speak
and for protected speech itself. Donald Trump has used many versions of silencing. He silences through ridicule of people who have less power than he does. He silences over and over again through autocratic threats, in going after people who have burned the flag, something the Supreme Court has twice declared to be protected speech. He violates our protections to express our dissent. Flag burning is no basis, as he has suggested, for people losing their citizenship or even for their being sent to jail. Nor is art intended only to make people happy. As Donald Trump declared after the cast of Hamilton courageously spoke out when Mike Pence was in their audience. When he threatens people like that, he closes down free speech as we have known it since the founding of this great country. He tries to silence us by threatening financial consequences. He said, we're going to open up those libel laws. So when the New York Times writes a hit piece, which is a total disgrace, or when the Washington Post writes a hit piece, we can sue them and win money instead of having no chance of winning because they're totally protected. When at his so-called press conference, he attacks a CNN reporter and declares that that is an organization behind fake news. When he describes BuzzFeed as garbage, when he disparages the people who would speak out, he is violating the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Yesterday, a Trump official said, the press is the opposition party. I want him out of the building. We are taking back the press room. That is not an American free press. Trump himself consistently engages in hate speech that offends many of us. But the answer to hate speech or to speech with which you disagree is not to make it illegal. It is to respond and protest and speak freely back to those declarations. Just as Chairman Mao and Joseph Stalin started by going after the intellectuals against those whose words might form an opposition to him, so Trump has gone across us. We are ground zero in his fight for total power. And that is why, as we have asserted repeatedly at Penn, and as Aaron Ballou has helped gather artists to comment on, free speech is first among equals when we look at what is being violated by this new regime. Penn speaks for the freedom to write, the freedom to express and share your understanding of the truth. We have more power collectively than individually. Having so many of you here today, I can't tell you the inspiration I feel coming out of this crowd. That cheer is for you. We have more power collectively than individually. Our focus at Penn used to be on the violations of free speech that take place abroad, where they happen so often. We never dreamed we would be turning our attention to those issues right here at home at the level we now have to do so. The freedoms we hope to bestow on others are now under explicit siege at home. We are gathered here to assert our right to free speech and defend the rights of others. That is our single and unified agenda, and we will defend free speech, the first among equals, and we will defend those who have no voice. A South African friend recently said to me, what is most shocking, and he had lived through apartheid, he said, what is most shocking is not how shocked you are right now. what is most shocking is how unshocked you will be in 6 months' time. And when I heard him, I took it as an occasion to declare that I will remain shocked. That we will remain shocked. And I ask everyone gathered here today to take this pledge that you will remain shocked by the horror we are encountering, and that you will fight for freedom and for free expression, for the First Amendment, and for dignity in America and in government. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Erin Ballou, and I'm the founder of Writers Resist. With, I have to say, following Andrew Solomon is about the same as following a bunch of crazy, talented children. That was a beautiful and inspirational speech. I want to thank PEN America for sponsoring today's Writers Resist event. Thank you to Andrew and Suzanne Nossel for coming on board immediately with this project and for sharing their visions and ideals to create an event that's open, free, and egalitarian at its core and in its spirit. Thank you also to Clarice Sharif, who's worked harder than just about anyone here to make this flagship event happen today in an intimidatingly short amount of time. Clarice is the definition of grace under pressure. I think she also had a word with the weather gods today. Clarice has that kind of pull. So thank you so much to her for what she's done for us. My comments today are brief, as I'm eager to hear with this astonishing group of writers and artists who will be speaking again shortly. We have more readers shortly. I want to hear what they have to share with us today. But I thought I'd take a moment to talk about how the Writers Resist effort came about. Throughout the campaign season, as must be true for many here today, I grew increasingly alarmed at the ugly, vulgar, violent rhetoric we heard daily. I can claim to have just one thing in common with the brilliant actress Meryl Streep, in that the nadir for me was the same as it was for her. And it came one night while I was making dinner with my son, Jude. My son, Jude, just turned 16 the other day. He's a bright boy, an honor student, obsessed with Pokemon and Doctor Who. He recently shared with me that he thinks he'd like to be a political historian someday. Jude was also born with a rare congenital condition that means he has a profound speech disability. While we were making dinner that evening, that's when we first saw the video footage of the president-elect viciously mocking a reporter, another person with a disability, and a man who dared to speak the truth to that campaign's lies. I felt many things in that moment, watching my son watch the next leader of the United States exhibit the kind of ugly behavior that wouldn't be tolerated on most grade school playgrounds. I felt what any empathetic human being can imagine. But what I felt most clearly was, this is not the country I was raised to believe in. This is not the promise of America. This is not who we are fundamentally, and this must not stand. So I considered my greatest resource, which is the brilliant writing community of which I've been a part for 30 years. And I thought to gather us together to speak to those great ideals which the United States has aspired to and grown toward in the last 241 years, hopefully so that we as a country can find our way back, as the great writer Abraham Lincoln said, to the better angels of our nature. The great grand experiment of American democracy, the methods by which it's moved forward over time, this vastly imperfect but constantly growing thing, has been written first and foremost. Try to imagine our democracy without the brilliance, the empathy, the bravery, and the vast imagination of Dr. King, whose birthday we celebrate today. So many voices over time who came to us when we needed them, leading us forward when others, out of fear and privilege, would try to stop time, to try to hide in the past. I believe we have arrived at another critical moment for our country when our dreamers and artists, our poets and writers are called on to reimagine and re-inaugurate those democratic ideals we cherish: equality, freedom of thought and speech, empathy, and compassion. We are the United States. We are brown, we are black, we are red, we are yellow, we are white, we are every color in between. We are queer, we are trans, we are bi, we are Muslim, we are Mexican, because we come from every country and we practice every religion. We are feminists, we are disabled and we are abled. Our bodies come in every shape and size, made up of both challenges and gifts. This is our America. This is who we are. So as other writers have shown us the way forward in the past, we will continue to write our democracy. We will imagine the world we want for our families, our children, our friends and neighbors. And I call upon you to join us by adding your voice to this effort. If you're interested to know more about what Writers Resist is doing in the future, I hope you'll come look and see what we're doing on the internet. Finally, I'd like to dedicate my participation today to my family, Jude, who is growing into an able and beautiful human being who's going to be a great political historian. To my brother Dennis and his husband Carlos, who is a Colombian by birth, but who became a proud United States citizen just a couple of years ago. And to my parents, my mother, who told me that well-behaved women rarely make history. And to my father, Wendell Ballou, who I wish was still here with us, who was a public school administrator for 40 years in Omaha, Nebraska, and who taught me talk doesn't mean a thing if you don't put your money where your mouth is. Thank you so much for being here today. It's my great pleasure to introduce the former poets of the Poet Laureates of the United States, Rita Dove and Robert Pinsky, who will be sharing poems with us today.
Rita and I have taken part in celebrations and great national occasions. We're here proud to say that we are writers, and we now are going to resist. We're each going to read a poem by one of our great predecessors, and then we will each read a poem that we have written. I will read you a poem by our great predecessor, the great poet, Gwendolyn Brooks. Gwendolyn Brooks wrote this sonnet on the subject of art in relation to resistance. First fight, then fiddle. Ply the stripping string with feathery sorcery. Muzzle the note with hurting love. The music that they wrote bewitch, bewilder, qualify to sing threadwise. Devise no salt, no hempen thing for the dear instrument. Devote the bow to silks and honey. Be remote a while from malice and from murdering. But first, to arms. To armor. Carry hate in front of you and harmony behind. Be deaf to music and to beauty blind. Win war, rise bloody, maybe not too late for having first to civilize a space wherein to play your violin with grace.
These times have struck so many of us speechless, because to speak out appears to fall on deaf ears. To articulate a reality that has spiraled beyond belief seems a task impossible without the aid of superheroes or elves. Our words are being threatened to be taken from us, facts twisted, realities silenced, which is why we must speak out for as long as it takes, as loudly as needed to be heard, louder together. This poem I will read to you now is from our great predecessor, Czesław Miłosz, translated by the author and by Robert Pinsky. Incantation. Human reason is beautiful and invincible. No bars, no barbed wire, no pulping of books, no sentence of banishment can prevail against it. It establishes the universal ideas in language and guides our hand so we write truth and justice with capital letters, lie and oppression with small. It puts what should be above things as they are. It is an enemy of despair and a friend of hope. It does not know Jew from Greek or slave from master, giving us the estate of the world to manage. It saves austere and transparent phrases from the filthy discord of tortured words. It says that everything is new under the sun. Opens the congealed fist of the past. Beautiful and very young are philosophia and poetry, her ally in the service of the good. As late as yesterday, nature celebrated their birth. The news was brought to the mountains by a unicorn and an echo. Their friendship will be glorious. Their time has no limit. Their enemies have delivered themselves to destruction.
I'll read you a poem that I wrote for this occasion. It's called Exile and Lightning. Exile and Lightning. You choose your ancestors. Our ancestor, Ralph Ellison, wrote, "Now, my fellow descendants, we endure a moment of charismatic indecency. Charismatic indecency and sanctimonious greed, falsehood beyond shame. Our Polish grandfather, Miłosz, and our African-American grandmother, Brooks, endured worse than this. Fight first, then fiddle, she wrote. Our great-grandmother, Emma Lazarus, wrote that the flame of the lamp of the mother of exiles is, quote, imprisoned lightning, end quote. My fellow children of exile and lightning, the indecency does construct its own statuary, but our uncle Ernesto Cardenal says, sabemos que el pueblo la derribará un día. The people will tear it down. And Miłosz says, beautiful and very young, are meaning recent, are poetry and philosophia, meaning science, her ally in the service of the good. Their enemies, he wrote, have delivered themselves to destruction. Un día, and very young, that long ancestral view of time. fellow inheritors, el pueblo, fellow exiles, all the quicker our need to fight and make music. As Gwendolyn Brooks wrote, to civilize a space.
My poem was written in happier times, at the 200th anniversary of the laying of the cornerstone of the U.S. Capitol. It is an admonition to never think that we are done with the task of caring for and helping others. It was meant to be a shout out to a government that seemed committed to reaching out and making our country an even better place. I never imagined it would be appropriate today, but here we are. Lady Freedom, the statue atop the Capitol building, stands bereft, alone, appalled. Lady Freedom among us. Don't lower your eyes or stare straight ahead to where you think you ought to be going. Don't mutter, oh no, not another one. Get a job, fly a kite, go bury a bone. With her old-fashioned sandals, with her leaden skirts, with her stained cheeks and whiskers and heaped-up trinkets, she has risen among us in blunt reproach. She has fitted her hair under a hand-me-down cap and spruced it up with feathers and stars. Slung over one shoulder, she bears the rainbowed layers of charity and murmurs, all of you, even the least of you. Don't cross to the other side of the square. Don't think another item to fit on a tourist's agenda. Consider her drenched gaze, her shining brow. She who has brought mercy back into the streets and will not retire politely to the potter's field. Having assumed the thick skin of this town, its gritted exhaust, its sun-scorch and blear, she rests in her weathered plumage, big-boned, resolute. Don't think you can ever forget her. Don't even try. She's not going to budge. No choice but to grant her space, crown her with sky, for she is one of the many, and she is each of us.
And I'm Robert Polito.
And we're going to let Allen Ginsberg have a few more words and read a few two brief sections from Sunflower Sutra. Poor dead flower, when did you forget you were a flower? When did you look at your skin and decide you were an impotent, dirty, old locomotive? The ghost of a locomotive. The specter and shade of a once powerful, mad American locomotive.
Now for the great final strophe. We're not our skin of grime. We're not dread, bleak, dusty, imageless locomotives. We're golden sunflowers inside, blessed by our own seed and hairy, naked accomplishment bodies, growing into mad, black, formal sunflowers in the sunset. Spied on by our own eyes under the shadow of the mad locomotive riverbank, sunset, Frisco, hilly, tin can, evening, sit down, vision.
Thank you.
How's everybody doing? My name is Charlie Vasquez, and I'm here on behalf of the Bronx Writers Center. Give it up for the Bronx! I'll be reading an excerpt from The American Dream by the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I would like to use as a subject from which to speak tonight the American Dream. And I use this subject because America is essentially a dream yet unfulfilled. The substance of the dream is expressed in some very familiar words found in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is a dream. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm State Senator Brad Hoylman. I am proud to represent so many writers and artists in Manhattan and the New York Public Library. Thank you, PEN America. But now, more than ever, our nation is challenged to realize this dream, for the shape of the world today does not afford us the luxury of an anemic democracy, and the price that America must pay for the continued oppression of minority groups is the price of its own destruction. The hour is late, and the clock of destiny is ticking out. And we must act now before it is too late.
What's up, New York? My name is Mustafa Bayoumi, and I'm here representing Brooklyn. There we go. All right. Continuing with the same Martin Luther King speech. If the American dream is to be a reality, we must develop a world perspective. It goes without saying that the world in which we live is geographically one, and now, more than ever before, we are challenged to make it one in terms of brotherhood and sisterhood, I might add. Now it is true that the geographical oneness of this age has come into being to a large extent through man's scientific ingenuity. Man, through his scientific genius, has been able to dwarf distance and time and place in chains. And our jet planes have compressed into minutes distances that once took weeks and even months. Through our scientific genius, we have made of this world a neighborhood. And now, through our moral and ethical commitment, we must make of it a brotherhood. We must all learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish together as fools. This is the challenge of the hour. No individual can live alone. No nation can live alone. Somehow we are interdependent. Or in other words, in my own words, from Plattsburgh to Palestine, freedom will be yours and mine.
Hi everyone, I'm Eve Ensler, and I just want to say to all of you beloved New Yorkers, may this day make New York City not only a sanctuary city, but the capital of the resistance. I'm going to read a piece called This Time. I'm sure it must have begun like this. The disbelief, a world once seemingly known slipping quickly out of their hands. The rules changing or disappearing as the new rules suddenly proliferating everywhere like nodes of anxiety, threatening to choke memory and breath. First, it was tone, maybe, a little harsher, a hint of malevolence. Then it got bolder, more daring and pronounced. There were whole populations that were problems. Then the language turned ugly, gross, grabbing, threatening civility. Right after came the badges, the isolation, the markings, the accidental incidents of violence. I'm sure no one meant to be unbrave, saying, it's too soon to tell. We don't know what will happen. He might not be so bad. The gradual silencing, the distancing, licensing that comes from waiting. There were some I know who called him straight out, illegitimate, unstable, dangerous, authoritarian. They were called extreme, poor losers, unpatriotic, and were swiftly taken away. Was it addiction to the promise of happiness, to comfort that allowed them to watch? Will there be a moment this time when we suddenly know that the fight is all, the struggle is our reason, when we gather ourselves like a wild animal, tighter and tighter, our body muscles solidified, our collective vision amplified, our attack, shrieks, yelps, screeches, cries augmented by wind, and the pounding determination of a hunger for life, moving through high grass and dry fields with new intensity and speed, howling the language of resistance.
Hey everyone, my name is Jacqueline Woodson, and I'm going to read a poem called If We Must Die by Claude McKay, who was born in 1889. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock of our accursed lot. If we must die, oh let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows, deal one death blow. What though before us lies an open grave? Like men we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but fighting back.
Hi, thanks for resisting the cold and the coming frost together. My name's Art Spiegelman, and thanks. I'm going to read a poem by Frank Zappa, hopefully next year's posthumous winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature, from the 1966 Mothers of Invention album, Freak Out, a hero of the Velvet Revolution, banned in Russia. And in January 1990, much to then Secretary of State James Baker's chagrin, Václav Havel appointed Zappa as special ambassador to the West on trade, culture, and tourism. If only we lived in a world where Josephine Baker had been Secretary of State, or even Ginger Baker, but it can't happen here. So I apologize for not being able to read properly off key. It can't happen here. It can't happen here. I'm telling you, my dear, that it can't happen here. Because I've been checking it out, baby. I checked it out a couple of times, And I'm telling you, it can't happen here. Oh, darling, it's important that you believe me. Bop, 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 bop. That it can't happen here. Who could imagine that they would freak out somewhere in Kansas? Kansas, Kansas, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Who could imagine that they would freak out in Minnesota? Minnesota. Who could imagine that they would freak out in Washington, D.C.? AC, D.C., AC, D.C., AC, D.C. It can't happen here. Everybody's safe and it can't happen here. No freaks for us, it can't happen here. Everybody's clean and it can't happen here. No, no, it won't happen here. I'm telling you, it can't. It won't happen here. I'm not worried at all. Plastic folks, you know, it won't happen here. You're safe, Mama. You're safe, baby. You just cook a TV dinner and you make it. Bop, bop, bop. No, 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 no. We're going to get a TV dinner and cook it up. Go get a TV dinner and cook it up. Cook it up. Oh, and it won't happen here. No, no, no. No, 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 no. Man, you guys are really safe. Everything's cool. Who could imagine that they'd freak out in the suburbs? I remember Tutu. They had a swimming pool. Sorry, my hands are too cold to turn to the last page here. I remember Tutu, they had a swimming pool, and they thought it couldn't happen here. They knew it couldn't happen here. They're so sure it couldn't happen here, but Susie, yes, 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 yes. I've always felt that. Yes, I agree, man. It really makes it. Yeah, it's a real thing, man, and it really makes it. Susie, you just got to town, and we've been very interested in your development. Forget it. It can't happen here. Thank you.
Thank you, Art, and thank you, Frank Zappa. I'm Bob Holman, and I'm going to read the first sentence from the preamble to the U.S. Constitution. But before that, I've just been handed a paper that is the beginning of the inaugural poem for you-know-who. It's by Stephen Sondheim. It goes like this. I thought you'd want what I want. Sorry, my dear, but where are the clowns? Send in the clowns. Don't bother. They're here. From the U.S. Constitution, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. To ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of Poetry.
My name is Bob Shikochis. Sometimes I have the eerie feeling that we're all being forced to watch a brand new season of The Sopranos. I'm reading from Democracy in America by Alexis de Tocqueville, published in 1835. The first newspaper that fell before my eyes on arriving in America contained the following article, which I translate faithfully. In all this affair, the language held to by President Andrew Jackson has been that of a heartless despot occupied solely with preserving his power. Ambition is his crime, and he will find his penalty in it. He has intrigue for a vocation, and intrigue will confound his designs and wrest his power from him. He governs by corruption, and his guilty maneuvers will turn to his confusion and shame. He has shown himself in the political arena as a player without modesty and without a bridle. He has succeeded, but the hour of justice approaches. Soon he will have to give back what he has won, throw his crooked dice far from himself, and end in some retirement where he can blaspheme in freedom against his folly. For to repent is not a virtue that has ever been given to his heart to know.
Americans. The only thing we have to fear is the shameless courting by the president of the world's greatest democracy of a despot responsible for innumerable criminal deeds and acts of savagery. Today, the entire globe is divided between human slavery and human freedom. We choose freedom. We accept only an America consecrated to freedom. Let those who would dare to conspire against our freedom understand that Americans will not, under any threat, surrender the guarantees of liberty framed for us by our forefathers in the Constitution of the United States. Franklin D. Roosevelt protesting against the Lindbergh presidency, excerpt from Philip Roth's The Plot Against America.
I'm David Haskell. The First Amendment to the Constitution. Congress should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, or to petition the government for a redress of grievance.
My name is Keith Kopka, and I'm going to share with you a quote from John F. Kennedy. The architects of fear have converted a wholesome law against conspiracy into an instrument for making association a crime. Pretending to fear government, they have asked government to outlaw private protest. They glorify togetherness when it is theirs and call it conspiracy when it is that of others.
I'm Francine Prose, and I've been thinking a lot in these dark times about the way that art can give us courage and console us. So I wanted to read you a poem that does that for me. It's a poem that I carry around in my wallet. It was written by the great Frank O'Hara, and it's called Lana Turner Has Collapsed. Lana Turner has collapsed. I was trotting along and suddenly it started raining and snowing, and you said it was hailing, but hailing hits you on the head hard. So it was really snowing and raining, and I was in such a hurry to meet you, but the traffic was acting exactly like the sky. And suddenly I see a headline, Lana Turner has collapsed. There is no snow in Hollywood. There is no rain in California. I have been to lots of parties and acted perfectly disgraceful, but I never actually collapsed. Oh, Lana Turner, we love you. Get up.
Hi, I'm Meg Wolitzer, and I'm reading, thank you, I'm reading an excerpt from an essay called Trump is a Great Storyteller, We Need to Be Better by Viet Thanh Nguyen. In Harrisburg, Pennsylvania of the mid-1970s, I was a refugee and the child of refugees who had fled Vietnam. My parents had neither the time nor the ability to read to me in English. So I took refuge in the local public library. It became my safe space and books my constant companion. I imagined myself amid the wonders of Manhattan, the bucolic splendor of Midwestern farms, the stirring and dreadful times of the American Revolution and the Civil War. Even if there was no one who looked like me or had a name like mine, through these stories I became an American. As I remembered this during our presidential election, what became clear to me was that the contest for our American identity wasn't strictly a political affair. It is also a matter of storytelling. Those who seek to lead our country must persuade the people through their ability to tell a story about who we are, where we have been, and where we are going. Good writers cannot write honestly if they are incapable of imagining what it is that another feels, thinks, and sees. Through identifying with characters and people who are nothing like us, through destroying the walls between ourselves and others, the people who love words, both writers and readers, strive to understand others and break down the boundaries that separate us. It's an ethos summed up by the novelist Colson Whitehead in his acceptance speech at the National Book Awards last month. Be kind to everybody, make art, and fight the power. After election night, during which my partner, my graduate students, and I drank 2 bottles of scotch, I renewed my commitment to fight the power. That was always my mission. I was thinking of it when I named my son Ellison after the novelist Ralph Waldo Ellison, himself named after the philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson. My son need not become a writer, but he will become a storyteller. We are all storytellers of our own lives, of our American identities. I want my son to rise to the challenge of fighting to determine which stories will define our America. That's the choice between building walls and opening hearts. Rather than making America great again, we should help America love again. Thank you.
Terrence.
I'm Zachary Wood.
Storm Irvin.
And we're reading What Do We Have to Lose? Everything by Harry Belafonte.
It begins with an excerpt by Langston Hughes, Let America Be America Again. Oh yes, I say it plain, America was never America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be.
What old men know is that everything can change. Langston Hughes wrote these lines when I was 8 years old, in a very different America of 1935. When Hughes writes in the first two lines of his poem, "Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be," he acknowledges that America is primarily a dream, a hope, an aspiration that may never be fully attainable, but that spurs us to be better, to be larger. He follows this with the repeated counterpoint, America never was America to me. And through the rest of this remarkable poem, he alternates between the oppressed and the wronged of America, and the great dreams that they have for their country that can never be extinguished.
Mr. Trump, who is not a poet, either in his late night tweets or in the speaker's stump, sees America's greatness as some heavy, dead thing that we must reacquire. Like a bar of gold, perhaps a bank vault, or one of the lifeless, anonymous buildings he loves to put up, it is a simplistic notion reducing all the complexity of the American experience into a greatness, and his prescription for the future is just as undefined, a promise that will return to winning without ever spelling out what we will win. Say the exclusion of others, the reduction of women to sexual tally points, the recloseting of so many of us.
What Langston Hughes so yearned for when he asked that America be America again was the realization of an age-old people's struggle, not the vaporous fantasies of a petty tyrant. Mr. Trump asked us what we have to lose, and we must answer only the dream, only everything.
My name is Siri Hustvedt.
You're right in the way. Can you go that way?
Thank you. Emma Lazarus, poet, translator, playwright, prose writer, and activist, was born in 1849 to a rich family of Sephardic Jews in New York City. She became a passionate advocate for refugees and immigrants and a potent force against anti-Semitism. Between 1880 and the First World War, more than 1 million Eastern European Jews arrived in New York City, and demonization of the dark, mysterious other was in full swing. Jewish immigrants were described as loathsome parasites living in unutterable filth and squalor. These new Jews were painted as potentially disloyal and traitorous to the U.S. Sound familiar? After Orlando, Trump said, "We cannot continue to allow thousands upon thousands of people to pour into our country, many of whom have the savage thought processes of this savage killer." Trump howled about Muslims as at one of his rallies. They use a religion to justify killing. They're so insidious that they can be right here and you don't know until it's too late. He has called for a Muslim registry. He has called for a Muslim ban. Donald Trump, we do not forget. We do not forget your attacks on Muslims and people of color. We will not forget your recent racist characterization of John Lewis's district of highly educated and peaceful human beings as in horrible shape and crime infested. Your 2017 version of unutterable filth and squalor. And we do not forget your misogyny. The women you called pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. We have not forgotten that in 1992 you said about women, you have to treat them like shit. We will not be quiet. We will not stand down. We will torment you. Lazarus was a strong, powerful woman who wrote a famous poem about an even stronger and more powerful woman. Most people, however, only know the final lines of the new Colossus. Lazarus died of cancer in 1887. She was 38 years old. 26 years later, the words of her poem were inscribed on a bronze plaque in the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. Now, if I can get the poem. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gate shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep your ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. I tell you now, it is we who must stand together as the new Colossus, a vast and powerful force that speaks and shouts against racism, xenophobia, and misogyny. We are the new Colossus.
Hi, my name is Masha Gessen. Thank you. And I'm going to read Hughes. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet must be, the land where every man is free, the land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, call me any ugly name you choose, the steel of freedom does not stain. From those who live like leeches on the people's lives, we must take back our land again. America, oh yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the rack and ruin of our gangster death,
the rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies, we the people must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, and the endless plain, all the stretch of these great green states, and make America again.
We're good. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Honor Moore, and I believe I stood not very far from here 40 years ago celebrating the end of another war, and this is a poem out of that war by Ocean Vuong. My mother remembers her mother for Lee Tai Lan, 1941 to 2008. My eyes close into a night thickened with ash and jasmine, mortar blasts lighting distance into shocks of dawn. In a room lit with light from another house, you lie alone beneath a baby-faced GI. What you know as shame is forgotten in the belly inside your belly. Hunger neglects pride the way fire neglects the cries of what it burns. Each soldier leaves you steeped in what they cannot keep. Liquor, salt of lust, the pink dust of shattered bodies. There are men who carry dreams over mountains, the dead on their backs. But only mothers can walk with the weight of a second beating heart. When they ask me where I'm from, I tell them my song sleeps in the toothless mouth of a war woman, that a white man rages in my veins, searching for his name. I tell them I was born because someone was starving.
Damn, it's cold. I think it's Trump Tower that's making us cold, but it's Martin Luther King's birthday, so the hearts of America are warm. I'm Tom Healy, and I'm giving voice to one of the great American poets who gives voice to all of us, Walt Whitman. Cosmos, who includes diversity and is nature, who is the amplitude of the earth and the coarseness and sexuality of the earth and the great charity of the earth and the equilibrium also, who is not looked forth from the windows, the eyes for nothing, or whose brain held audience with messengers for nothing, who contains believers and disbelievers, who is the most majestic lover, who holds duly his or her triune proportion of realism, spiritualism, and of the aesthetic or intellectual, who is, having considered the body, finds all its organs and parts good, who out of the theory of the earth and of his or her body understands by subtle analogies the theory of a city, a poem, and of the large politics of these states, who believes not only in our globe with its sun and moon, but in other globes with their suns and moons, who constructing the house of himself or herself, not for a day, but for all time, sees races, eras, dates, generations, the past, the future, dwelling there like space, inseparable together.
Hi, I'm Monica Yoon. I wrote this poem in response to the election, thinking about greed. It's about 4 definitions of the word mine: possessive pronoun, strip mine, land mine, and undermine. A pronoun. How should I define the limits of my concern, the boundary between mine and not mine, the chime of the pronoun like a steel ring cast over what I know, what I name, what I claim, what I own? The wine of the pronoun hones its bright edges to keenness because there is power in the categorical that prides itself and plumps itself and proliferates till there is no room in here for anything but power, till there is no air in here. But there would be no need for air if you could learn to breathe in whatever I breathe out. B, noun, strip mine. Because the earth does not gleam with the shine of the noun, to dig into the earth is imperative. To use my fingers or else to fashion more rigid, more perdurable fingers that cut or delve or sift or shatter, because we are more evolved than animals, because to mine is not to burrow, because the earth is not for us to live in. The earth is what is scraped away or blasted away or melted away from what my steel-tipped fingers can display or sell or burn. C, noun, landmine. My device, redefined by intent so thin-skinned this earth is untouchable. A sly simulacrum of innocence, concealing an infinity of hair-trigger malice. The cry of the noun sealed in a concentric sphere that sheaths its lethal secret in silence. Unapproachable, it sings its unspeakable harvest in this field I have seeded with violence. 4, undermine. To dig is to build dark dwellings of negative space, to link a linked network of nothing. The seams of the seemingly solid unravel, the itch of erosion, the scratch of collapse, each absence the artifact of specific intention, an abscess, a crater, a honeycomb of dead husks. The home of the verb is founded on ruin. The crime of the verb hollows out prisons and graves. The rhyme of the verb tunnels from fissure to fracture, from factory to faction, from fault line to fate. This foundation is equal parts atom and emptiness. This sphere invades fractally by rhizome and root. What cement could salvage this crumbling concrete? Should I pledge my allegiance to unearthing or earth? Thank you.
I'm Michael Cunningham. Thank you. Thank you for being here. This is the writer Ursula K. Le Guin. You cannot buy the revolution. You cannot make the revolution. You can only be the revolution. It is in your spirit. It is in our spirit, or it is nowhere. Thank you.
My name is Jason Reynolds, and this is an excerpt from Letter to My Nephew by, to me, the greatest American writer of all time, James Baldwin. This country set you down in a ghetto in which, in fact, it intended that you should perish. Let me spell it out precisely. You were born where you were born, and you faced the future that you faced because you were black, and for no other reason. The limits to your ambition were thus expected to be settled. You were expected to make peace with mediocrity, told where you could go and what you could do and how you could do it and where you could live and whom you could marry. I know your countrymen do not agree with me, but they don't know Harlem, and I do, and so do you. Trust your experience. Know whence you came. Please try to remember that what they believe, as well as what they do and cause you to endure, does not testify to your inferiority, but to their inhumanity and fear. And the terrible thing is that you must accept them with love, for these people are in effect still trapped in a history which they do not understand, and until they understand it, they cannot be released from it. You don't be afraid. These men are your brothers, your lost younger brothers, and we with the love shall force our brothers to see themselves as they are, to cease fleeing from reality and begin to change it, for this is your home. Don't be driven from it. You know and I know that the country is celebrating 100 years of freedom, 100 years too early. We cannot be free until they are free. God bless you, James. Godspeed, your Uncle James.
My name's Jeff Gordonier. This is a poem by the late, great Philip Levine. It's called The Simple Truth. I bought $1.50's worth of small red potatoes, took them home, boiled them in their jackets, and ate them for dinner with a little butter and salt. Then I walked through the dried fields on the edge of town. In middle June, the light hung on in the dark furrows at my feet, and in the mountain oaks overhead, the birds were gathering for the night, the jays and mockers squawking back and forth, the finches still darting in the dusty light. The woman who sold me the potatoes was from Poland. She was someone out of my childhood in a pink-spangled sweater and sunglasses, praising the perfection of all her fruits and vegetables at the roadside stand and urging me to taste even the pale, raw, sweet corn trucked all the way, she swore, from New Jersey. Eat, eat, she said. Even if you don't, I'll say you did. Some things you know all your life. They are so simple and true, they must be said without elegance, meter, and rhyme. They must be laid on the table beside the salt shaker, the glass of water, the absence of light gathering in the shadows of picture frames. They must be naked and alone. They must stand for themselves. My friend Henri and I arrived at this together in 1965 before I went away, before he began to kill himself, and the two of us to betray our love. Can you taste what I'm saying? It is onions and potatoes, a pinch of simple salt, the wealth of melting butter. It is obvious. It stays in the back of your throat like a truth you never uttered because the time was always wrong. It stays there for the rest of your life, unspoken, made of that dirt we call earth, the metal we call salt, in a form we have no words for, and you live on it. Thank you.
We're about to set out for the tower, so I'm going to just read a few lines from a poem by Adrienne Rich and Laurie Anderson. And the poem's called What Kind of Times Are These? I've walked there picking mushrooms at the edge of dread. But don't be fooled. This isn't a Russian poem. This is not somewhere else, but here. Our country moving closer to its own truth and dread, its own ways of making people disappear. I won't tell you where the place is, the dark mesh of the woods. I won't tell you where it is. So, why do I tell you anything? Because you still listen.
In the open space of democracy, we are listening. My name is Colin McCann. I'm reading a poem by W.B. Yeats called The Second Coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dim tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. Ladies and gentlemen, our strength lies in our imaginations. Thank you.
Honestly, I'm reading with Amy Sohn and Amy Brill. We are reading a selection from Superman and Me by Sherman Alexie. I can remember picking up my father's books before I could read. The words themselves were mostly foreign, but I still remember the exact moment when I first understood with a sudden clarity the purpose of a paragraph. I didn't have the vocabulary to say paragraph, but I realized that a paragraph was a fence that held words. The words inside a paragraph worked together for a common purpose. They had some specific reason for being inside the same fence. This knowledge delighted me. I began to think of everything in terms of paragraphs. Our reservation was a small paragraph within the United States. My family's house was a paragraph, distinct from the other paragraphs of the Lebrett's to the north, the Fords to our south, and the tribal school to the west. Inside our house, each family member existed as a separate paragraph, but still had genetics and common experiences to link us. Now, using this logic, I can see my changed family as an essay of 7 paragraphs. Mother, father, older brother, the deceased sister, my younger twin sisters, and our adopted little brother.
This might be an interesting story all by itself. A little Indian boy teaches himself to read at an early age and advances quickly. He reads Grapes of Wrath in kindergarten when other children are struggling through Dick and Jane. If he'd been anything but an Indian boy living on the reservation, he might have been called a prodigy. But he is an Indian boy living on the reservation and is simply an oddity. He grows into a man who often speaks of his childhood in the third person, as if it will somehow dull the pain and make him sound more modest about his talents.
I refused to fail. I was smart. I was arrogant. I was lucky. I read books late into the night until I could barely keep my eyes open. I read books at recess, then during lunch. And in the few minutes left after I'd finished my classroom assignments, I read books in the car when my family traveled to powwows or basketball games. In shopping malls, I ran to the bookstores and read bits and pieces of as many books as I could. I read the books my father brought home from the pawn shops and secondhand. I read the books I borrowed from the library. I read the backs of cereal boxes. I read the newspaper. I read the bulletins posted on the walls of the school, the clinic, the tribal offices, the post office. I read junk mail. I read auto repair manuals. I read magazines. I read anything that had words and paragraphs. I read with equal parts joy and desperation. I loved those books, but I also knew that love had only one purpose. I was trying to save my life.
I'm Roseanne Cash. Woo! Woo! Thank you for staying out here on this cold day. I'm going to read Leonard Cohen's Democracy. It's coming through a hole in the air from those nights in Tiananmen Square. It's coming from the feel that this ain't exactly real, or it's real, but it ain't exactly there. From the wars against disorder, from the sirens night and day, from the fires of the homeless, from the ashes of the gay, democracy is coming to the USA. It's coming through a crack in the wall on a visionary flood of alcohol, from the staggering account of the Sermon on the Mount, which I don't pretend to understand at all. It's coming from the silence
on the dock of the bay, from the brave, the bold, the battered heart of Chevrolet. Democracy is coming to the USA. It's coming from the sorrow in the street, the holy places where the races meet, from the homicidal bitchin' that goes down in every kitchen to determine who will serve and who will eat. From the wells of disappointment where the women kneel to pray for the grace of God in the desert here and the desert far away, democracy is coming to the USA. Sail on, O mighty ship of state, to the shores of need, past the reefs of greed, through the squalls of hate. Sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. It's coming to America first, the cradle of the best and of the worst. It's here they got the range and the machinery for change, and it's here they got the spiritual thirst. It's here the family's broken, and it's here the lonely say that the heart has got to open in a fundamental way. Democracy is coming to the USA. It's coming from the women and the men. Oh, baby, we'll be making love again. We'll be going down so deep, the river's gonna weep, and the mountain's going to shout, Amen. It's coming like the tidal flood beneath the lunar sway, imperial, mysterious, in an amorous array. Democracy is coming to the USA. Sail on, O mighty ship of state, to the shores of need, past the reefs of greed, through the squalls of hate. Sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. I'm sentimental, if you know what I mean. I love the country, but I can't stand the scene. I'm neither left nor right. I'm just staying home tonight, getting lost in that hopeless little screen. But I'm stubborn as those garbage bags that time cannot decay. I'm junk, but I'm still holding up this little wild bouquet. Democracy is coming to the USA. Going to close with a song before the march.
Hi, I'm Morley. This is Carla Duran, Issa Davis, and we're going to sing a song written by Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagan, inspired by Ella Baker, called Ella's Song. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. You know it, sing with us. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest.
Freedom cannot rest.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white men. White mothers' sons. Then we who believe in freedom cannot rest. Sing with us. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. That which touches me most is that I have a chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. To me, young people come first. They have the courage where we fail, And if I could but shed some light as they carry us through the gale, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
The older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be just one in the number as we stand against tyranny.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest.
Freedom cannot rest.
Makes you warm. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Struggling myself don't mean that much. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way my struggle survives. I'm a woman who speaks with a voice, and I must be heard. And at times I can be quite difficult, 'cause I'll bow to no man's word. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest.
Freedom cannot rest.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest.
Everybody, I'm Suzanne Nossel. I'm the Executive Director of PEN America. This is the very last thing you'll hear this afternoon. You guys are intrepid. You're unstoppable. You've lasted the whole afternoon, and we thank you. All that's left for me to do is, first of all, to thank our incredible lineup of readers and singers today. Give them a big round of applause. Second is, for anybody here who's not a PEN member or not a PEN supporter, we need you with us. There comes a time in the life of every organization and every person of principle when our normal tactics and tone no longer suffice. This is that moment for PEN America. We have to rise up. We have to be louder. We have to be stronger. We have to take to the streets and be more determined. And we've done that today. And we're going to be doing that for the coming weeks and months and years. Stand with us, please. And right now, the only thing left for us to do is take the message to Donald Trump. This is our petition in my hand. We have 165,000 signatures behind our petition, and we are going to march up Fifth Avenue, 14 blocks to Trump Tower. I hope you'll join us. And we have hand warmers and foot warmers. I think there's still some left. But if you have the energy, if you have the fight, if you want to join us, we'll be right down on the sidewalk. We're heading off right now. Thank you for coming. Thank you, everyone.
You say it together. Louder. Louder. Writers. Louder. Writers. Louder. Writers. Louder. Louder. Writers. Louder.
Somebody else is
I
taping it.
thought the other guy, the roaming camera.
Oh, he's gonna, okay.
I haven't seen him.
I think I've seen him.
Okay. So I used one of my cards because it was definitely fast enough.
Okay.
I can hand it to you, but is there any way I can get it back tomorrow? Or
Yes, absolutely.
you guys copy it today or copy it tomorrow? Yeah.
Probably copy it tonight.
Let's run this
Got
it. I'm in NYC, so I can.
Okay. I'm gonna cut on it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Or I can copy it. I can probably just give it to you. It's up to you.